So for today's video, I want to continue down this path that thoughts are a shadow of consciousness, which is to say that they have no causal powers, that they are consciousness pretending to be what it isn't. And consciousness is always in control because it is us, it is everything. And when it pretends to be what it isn't, it gets us down some very interesting paths. But again, it's always very pleasant to find our way home after getting lost. But for today's video, to illustrate this, because it's a bold statement, and most of psychology, the vast majority of therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy. Change your thoughts, change your life. And so it's a bold statement to come out and say, look, thoughts have no causal power. And to illustrate this, I want to use a new series called The Irrational. If you haven't checked it out and you're a psychology geek, definitely check it out because they use so many findings from psychology and apply it to the real world. So if you're trying to find out what someone knows, you can use the cocktail party effect. And so if you're in a room and you mention a certain name and look to see who notices, and it sort of reveals that name was really important to that person. So they get most of it right. And I think the couple things they got wrong, they might have just thrown in there for us geeks to ponder and debate about. But what I want to use is a particular episode that looked at fear of flying. Fear of flying is an excellent illustration that thinking is an illusion in a sense that it has no control. Because if you look at the statistics, it's absolutely clear. You'd have to fly in a plane every day for 25,000 years to actually get into a crash. So they've got the numbers so close to zero. And in fact, in the series, they say that there's never been a major commercial crash in the U.S. in the last 10 years. And it turns out that, at least what I looked up, that is accurate. So if the thinking mind had control, there would be zero fear of flying. And that's not the way it is. In fact, about 60% of people have some degree of fear of flying, and about 5% are actually really freaked out about flying. Now, of course, most people would say, well, that's because we're irrational. But I would actually argue it's not that. I would say it's that the thinking mind simply has no causal power. If it did, no one would fear flying. And I would also argue that it's absolutely normal to freak out, to have this body freak out about going into this elongated metal cigar that's going to fly 500 miles an hour up in the sky. And so that's probably very normal. In fact, if I talk so much about the Pitahan and this indigenous culture to South America that has stayed very true to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And odds are, if they got into a car and you started blasting down the road at 80 miles an hour, my guess is they would have a pretty severe reaction, and that would be absolutely normal. So the basic of the video today is just check out that series. I'd like to know what you think of it, and also consider if thought really had some causal power, we would live in a completely different reality.